Alright guys, when we last left off, I had just blown up the transmission in my Dodge doing some medium towing with it. Now I knew that this was a possibility as soon as the fluid came out with a little bit of water contamination, but I didn't know exactly when it was going to happen. Turns out it happened sooner rather than later. Now time is of the essence in getting this transmission fixed because I've already sold my Ford that this Dodge is replacing. So right now I don't have a truck. So let's just jump right into it. It's still running and driving. I'm pulling it into the shop right now, and we'll get this transmission out. We'll see how much time it's gonna take. I don't think it'll be too bad. I've got my father-in-law here to help, which is nice. I'm usually doing things on my own. So let's see how quick we can do it. All right, I'm draining the transmission fluid with my father-in-law Jimbo down there. He's helping me out today. The fluid looks pretty good. A lot of that swirls, that's from the differential that I just pulled out. I took a little sample of the fluid. Let me show it to you. That's over here. So this is what I pulled out. It really, I mean, it looks fine. It's not like brand new, but it's nice and cherry red. Alright guys, I'm in the middle of pulling out the transmission. I'm not doing a full how-to video on this because Thoroughbred Diesel already did an awesome one. I'll link that in the description. Now I had to decide if I wanted to pull the transmission out while the vehicle is all the way up on the lift. This lift is rated at 8,000 pounds, and as you saw in the last video, this truck weighs 7,400 pounds. So honestly, it's a little bit sketchy, especially with the rear end hanging out over there. What I did was I measured the exact center of gravity, which is what, 61% of the weight is in the front, so it's right here is in the middle. That way I can be as safe as possible, but it's still a little bit sketchy using this tall transmission jack. So what I'm doing is I'm using the floor jack that is currently attached to my father-in-law over here, and we're going to pull the transmission out while the vehicle is down. Now the only issue that I really want to show you, let me get underneath here, is right here, the transmission to transfer case separation. That was giving us just nothing but headaches, and in the Thoroughbred video they actually pulled them out together because they were having such a hard time. So what I ended up doing, if you see right here, let me get some light there, you've got a wonderful little spot to get a pry bar in and really get some leverage to split it on one side, but of course that separates it a little bit cocked, and of course you don't want to do that more than you have to. So on this side, what I found was that a 2x4 fits into this nice little section right here where I can get it on some of the aluminum ribbing where it's, you know, nice and strong. And then over here, you've got this little ear that is then you know, cast into this large piece. So this seems pretty structurally solid. I used a scissor jack that I have off of one of the vehicles that I've scrapped. Every time I scrap a vehicle, I save these jacks because they could be handy for something like this. Now the back side of this jack has a nice little groove that fits a 2x4 perfectly. And if you're wondering if I'm going to put any pressure on this, I am not. You see this is still able to move freely. So what I was able to do is crank and crank and crank, and I finally got this sucker to split free. Now while I was doing that, I did keep two of the bolts on the top finger tight so that it wouldn't pop off and fall on the ground over here. So we finally got it to break free. The next step is going to be pulling out that transfer case together, and then we can get this transmission out. Alright guys, we got the transmission out, and she weighs 262 pounds. She's a heavy girl. I was weighing this is the 5R44E out of Ranger, and when this was full with the torque converter and all the fluid, it was 151 pounds. So big difference, 262 pounds. So I'll go ahead and weigh the transfer case too, and we'll see what that comes out to. All right, well, the transfer case weighs 118 pounds. She's awfully light, at least compared to the transmission. Now this is a 273D. I'm not familiar with this transfer case at all. I'm very familiar with the NP 203s, 205s, and 208s. Specifically the 208s because I've broken a bunch of them. Those were the chain drive aluminum ones that came in Ford Broncos. But this thing should be, I'm sure it's heavy duty enough. We looked it up, and what did it say? 17,000 pounds, 17.5 or something it was rated at, so it should be more than adequate. All right, I'm going to definitely call up a few transmission shops. Because of what I'm going to use this for, I'm just not comfortable rebuilding it myself in this shop, especially for my first try. So I'll call a few shops and just see what it's going to cost if I bring this in with the Suncoast Stage 1 kit, what they'll charge to do it, and what they think about the Suncoast kit. I'm hoping I can find a guy who has done a bunch of these, specifically with upgrades, who knows exactly what they're doing at a somewhat reasonable price. But I'll certainly let you guys know what they charge and what I end up doing with this. Alright guys, well I've made my decision on what to do with this transmission, but I wanted to give you the 3 options that I was weighing so that you can tell me in the comments below if you think I made the right choice. Now my first option was to buy the Suncoast Stage 1 kit. Now the kit itself was $1,650 plus shipping, and then I had to ship back the torque converter. In doing that, I would have not replaced any of the valve body components or the electronics inside. And so if there was any issues with getting some of the contaminated fluid out of there, or if there was just any internal problems, those wouldn't have been addressed. Also, it would not have added any clutches to the overdrive and the direct, which a lot of the other kits do and a lot of the manufacturers do. And I've never done one of these transmissions before. I've done a few other transmissions, all Fords and Chevys. It looks pretty straightforward, but there's always a risk getting into the unknown. And if anything inside needs to be machined, I would have had to outsource that. Now my next choice, I talked to a local shop that does all different kinds of transmissions. Everything from, front wheel drive cars all the way up to big trucks. He was familiar with the 48RE. He was a little bit familiar with some of the modifications that were done to it. He said that he would have installed the Suncoast Stage 1 kit for $2,500 out the door. And that he would have also replaced the solenoids but not modified the valve body. So $2,500, $800 more to have him do it. He's obviously done a bunch of these in the past. That seemed like a pretty good deal to me. Then my third choice was to go with FSR Diesel. Now that's a local shop that I didn't have any experience with. I didn't even know they were local until I was referred to them by another diesel shop. Now this diesel shop said they do all their transmissions and they have a stellar reputation. I checked online, all the reviews looked fantastic, so I went down there and actually talked to the owner. They really know their stuff, and they specialize in the 47RE, the 48RE, and the next one up, a 68RFE, I think it is, on the 6.7 Dodges. I ended up going with this decision because they really know what they were talking about, and the shop was just full of all the exact same transmissions. So in this kit, it's going to be their tow package, which is very similar to the Firepunk diesel tow package, if you're familiar with that one, or the Suncoast Stage 1 tow package with the standalone transmission that they do. Not the rebuild kit, the entire transmission. Now for the Suncoast transmission, it was $4,800, plus you had to ship it back, and then you had to ship your core. The Firepunk was $3,800, and again, you have to ship it. The total cost out the door was $3,500 for me. They do basically everything that the Firepunk diesel does. It's a tried and true system. They change the valve body a little. Well, you know what? Actually, I got to interview the guy who actually built it at FSR. So let's just jump right into that interview with him. The interview is a little bit poorly edited. This was my first time I've really ever interviewed somebody at a shop, so I talk over myself a little bit, and the audio is a little bit rough to hear. So you feel free to jump ahead. But the guy there, Aaron, who built it, fantastic guy, really knows his stuff, and I was just having a blast talking about all the little intricacies, and it was very gracious of him to give me some of his time to answer every single question that I had, because I'm certainly not an automatic transmission expert, and he is. So we'll jump right into that, and he'll tell you exactly what he did. All right, guys, I'm here with Aaron from FSR Diesel. He's the guy who actually built the transmission for me. And if you don't mind, Aaron, can you show me a little bit about what we did to it?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of some of the more basic things that we do for these transmissions to kind of beef them up a bit, both for longevity as well as actual power increases, is we'll actually go in and increase clutch counts on our overdrive indirect clutches as well as our actual direct drum, also known as the front clutch. So we actually go in and have these pressure plates machined, allowing us to have a larger clearance to be able to add an extra clutch in, so going from a 5 clutch to a 6 clutch in both.
And so that's just machines this little lip right here,
yeah,
and then that spaces it out a little bit farther against the snap ring so that you can add an extra clutch right there on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
And it's funny because I believe it was 03 and 02 of the 47s actually already had one of these machined from the factory, which kind of is what gave a lot of the builders the idea of doing it later on for the 48s. We use TCS Canada billet apply lever as well as the anchor and strut for this front band over here. So this is your actual reverse band.
Okay.
So this is gonna, when reverse is applied, the servo will actuate the lever, which then will squeeze this band holding the reverse drum, which stops that from spinning, which reverses the actual direction of the intermediate and thus output shaft, which is how you get reverse.
Fascinating. Now, I've heard that the snap ring, I wasn't sure if it was a snap ring for one of these or something else, is common to break.
So that's going to be not for the indirect, but the actual direct clutches on the overdrive. It's just a kind of over time they get somewhat brittle and they can snap. You find out because you'll drop your pan and you'll have pieces of snap ring laying in there.
Yeah, luckily I didn't have that. Do you know what was wrong specifically with my transmission?
Besides the band itself.
Oh, this is the one that was on mine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can see.
It started to flake off, which that could be potentially from, because you were saying it had water contamination a bit.
Right, we do know it had water contamination. We just don't know exactly how much.
Yeah, this is something you'll kind of see as it just starts to eat at the metal a bit, and then this will start to flake off as well. And so this is one of the upgrades we do also. This is just that stock band. We go to a Borg-Warner solid flex band.
Awesome.
So you're just increasing the actual surface area as well as kind of strengthening the actual metal part of the band.
And you were saying this band is important because the entire time that you're in second gear, it's being clamped down and holding that drum. Is that correct?
Yep, so that's holding the direct drum, which is preventing that from spinning, which is the entire time you're in second gear. That's what's applying the second gear. It's also known as the kick down band. So this is kind of a rough idea. This is one that has kind of a similar shift kit that we will use. Obviously it's not fully together. This is one of the modifications we do. This is your actual manual lever. Okay. So when you're moving the column shifter, this is what's moving to change you from drive, neutral, reverse, park. And so we actually go in here and we'll use a file to kind of create like a little bit of a relief right there. Okay. Which is what allows you to get actual cooler flow through the converter when you're in park.
Oh, yes, that's what Fred was explaining to me. Because normally when it's in park, there's no flow, but every other other selector it has. And I noticed that when I was doing I was doing a flush without the machine. Gotcha. So what I did was I had a bucket, and it was going into the bucket, and then I could put it into park, which would stop the flow, and then I could add more fluid. But now that's not going to be the case because it has flow in park, and that will help keep it from overheating if it's sitting in park for a long time, like if you're navigating a trailer or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, or even if you're in really bad stop and go traffic and you're just putting it in park each time so you're not having to stand on the brake, that will kind of help keep everything cool from that side of it.
Were there any other internal modifications to it?
Yes. So this one's kind of hard to show because it is still full assembled. This plate right here, this entire separator plate, this is actually an aftermarket one from Transgo. It's the same one that we use. It's just slightly different sizes for the holes versus the stock one, and then we'll go in and actually drill out some of them so they're a little bit bigger. It's just allowing more oil flow in certain gears, so it will apply, like second gear, third gear will actually be applied faster. So you're not having any type of delay from the valve body as far as that goes.
Interesting. Are you familiar with the J-Mod for the Ford transmissions?
I am not.
Oh, okay. I have a 4R70W, and I just took off the separator plate, and the guy who engineered the transmission says drill out here, 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 and here, and it does the shifts faster. But haven't put it together yet, so I don't know, but we'll see. Fantastic. Now, one other question. I have the factory flex plate on this truck still, and when I looked at it, just looking at it, it looked like it was made of tissue paper. It was the cheapest, chintziest flex plate I've ever seen for a motor that stock comes with 610 torque, which is crazy to me. I have no idea why they stamped a whole bunch of random holes in it. Now, you guys offer one, but the one you offer is the billet one, right? Now, is there anything in between the cheap stock one and the billet?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. I've seen some Chinese-made ones, but they're like 35 thousandths thicker, which is less than 1 millimeter, and they're made in China, so it's like, is it even better?
Questionable welds on them.
Exactly. So is the stock flywheel adequate for a stock horsepower?
It is adequate for that. There are people that have had issues with them, but it's
even on stock motors.
Even on stock motors, but it's not prevalent enough to where it's necessarily like a concern. It's very much a one-off situation. Those people that have had issues, it'll be like something with their starter starts to knock teeth off of the actual
the ring gear.
That around there.
Oh, this is a manual transmission, right? This is a flywheel. All right, well, thank you so much, Aaron, for your help, and this has been a quick little tour of FSR Diesel, and now I can get back to the shop and get that transmission installed. All right, guys, I pulled that factory pan, off of the transmission here. I've got my deep dish pan. This is an aluminum pan that has a little magnetic drain plug on the bottom. You can see it's got little fins to help cool it down. I'm going to go ahead and install this now. There is a little adapter that comes with it. This is a spacer block that goes in between the filter and the valve body there to move that filter down just a little bit, get it farther into the pan so that it can actually use the extra 4 quarts that this holds. So I'll go ahead and install that now. All right, I've got the new pan installed. This thing is ready to go into the transmission. Now, a lot of you guys are following this build along with my trophy truck build here, and I want to point out something interesting. The total out the door cost for this was $3,500. So I dropped $3,500 on just having this factory transmission built into something that can last a lifetime and be able to handle all the torque that I throw at it. The entire budget for this entire build was $4,000. And I just find some kind of silly irony in the fact that I can build this entire vehicle for $4,000 and then it takes $3,500 to drop into a transmission on a heavy duty truck. Now, obviously you've been following the decision process on why I ended up doing this, and given the damage that we found on the inside, which was almost entirely isolated to the front band, and water contamination on the clutches, I could have gotten away with doing a rebuild. It ends up being something that I'm totally comfortable with throwing the money into, but I just had to point out the irony in the fact that that these are so close in costs. So Jimbo here just cleaned off all the threads on the transfer case. If you remember when we removed it, there was a lot of corrosion around. Now you see the input shaft seal, it looks awfully worn. I'm trying to source this out, and then I want to clean up this input shaft before we go ahead and throw this back together. All right, I've got the new transfer case input seal done. The output seal was looking good, and if this one ends up leaking, I can just pull the drive shaft off and I can swap that off while it's on the vehicle. So this is the only one that I was really concerned about. Otherwise, it's ready to go in. Alright guys, I've got the torque converter on. This thing is a heavy son of a gun. Now, one thing that's interesting, I'm used to Ford and Chevy torque converters, and if you notice here, you see there's not a lot of room. I don't know if, well, you can tell, there it is. I can't push the torque converter back anymore, but it is sticking out a little bit farther than the bell housing, which is unusual. It's not like this on the Fords or the Chevys, but I wanted to show you guys here on the super chintzy flywheel. You see the flywheel sticks out past the bell housing just a little bit. I don't know, that is maybe 1/4 of an inch, give or take. And then if you notice, the mounting holes for the torque converter are on the inside. So I did go ahead and measure this and make sure that this distance is the same as this distance right here to know that I've got the torque converter fully seated. And then we're gonna go ahead and throw it in there with the help of Jimbo over here. Say hi, Jimbo.
Hi, Jimbo.
All right, guys, the transmission's installed. Before I fill it up, I wanted to drain the fluid from the transfer case, but I wanted to show you guys what the fluid is looking like. So let's take a look. Woo! There it goes. Now, this is automatic transmission fluid that is used in the transfer case. That's been pretty common for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. They used to be filled up with gear oil, like an ADW90 or so, but now it's all ATF. So in this case, it's a Dodge, so they were filled with ATF plus 4, but this exact same type of transfer case, 273 Delta, was filled with Dextron 3 when it was put into the Fords, or Mercon 3 rather in the Fords, and I think Dextron 3 in the Chevys. So whatever automatic transmission fluid you've got for this. You can see it does not look like it has been changed in the 140,000 miles, but at least it doesn't look like it ever had any water damage. So I had a few people ask me about water contamination. I did take a little sample from the inside just to make sure before I drove it around, but I may not have explained that to you guys, but now it's gonna get new fluid. All right, guys, I got her running last night, got her pulled out of the shop. Everything on it seemed fine. I just double checked the fluid, so she's good to go for the first test drive. So let's get to it. All right, guys, here we go. Wow, Wow, the RPMs are lower overall, and it's definitely shifting a lot firmer. Wow, that's nice. All right, I'm about to turn here and give it a little something. We'll see how it's doing. Let's see what we got here. That was 2,700. Yeah, wow, these shifts are nice. Really firm. There they are, all 4 gears. 50 miles an hour, just like that. Feels really solid, feels really tight. The RPMs aren't anywhere near as high as they were going even before it started slipping. Ah, quail! We get a lot of quail around here. They're not the brightest animal. If you don't slow down for them, they won't stop. Well, that test drive went well. I'm going to pull it into the shop. I'll check the fluids. As long as everything looks good, send it back out again. I'm almost at operating temperature. That was a short drive, so now that we're at operating temperature, check the fluids, take it out for a little bit of a longer drive. We'll see how she does. All right, guys, well, it's been a few hundred miles at operating temperature, and she's doing great. The shifts are really firm. They're exactly when you're expecting them. They're very fast when they happen. Nothing's too rough, though. I think it's going to be a fantastic transmission. I haven't done any towing with it, but I will be doing that in the next week, so I'll let you guys know how that goes. Now, as far as the warranty, there's a 2-year unlimited mile warranty on this, which is fantastic. It's great to see shops standing by that, but I'm not anticipating any issues. It's not leaking a drop. I checked the fluid, everything on it looks fantastic. So really excited with my decision here. Once again, let me know in the descriptions if you think I made the right choice. I could have done it myself with the rebuild, but it would have been my first time on that, and it would have been a little iffy. I could have went to a shop that didn't specialize in them, and it would have cost me a little bit less, but I'm really happy with the decision I made. Interested to hear what you think. As far as the cost to R&R it, FSR said it would have been $850 to R&R it, and obviously there's a little bit of a time wait because there's other vehicles that they're working on right now. So I saved $850 and a few days by doing it myself. I think that was a great deal because it took half a day out and half a day back in. It's really straightforward. This is actually one of the simplest transmissions you can pull out. The only difficult thing is everything's so heavy. That's it. But thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. And next week will be a trophy truck video. I know that that's what you guys were hoping for this week, but this pandemic has thrown a little bit of a wrench into everybody's lives, I know. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm having some issues getting deliveries on time. So I'm not quite getting the parts that I need, and I'm having to move around the order in which I'm doing some of the repairs. But there will be a trophy truck video next week, and it's going to be a good one, I think. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.